Welcome to Holly's Pandorium, featuring your host, psychic medium Holly Jordan.
Hey everybody, this is Holly and we're back. It's been a minute. I had pneumonia, so I couldn't do any recordings for a while because you would have just heard me coughing my brains out, which would have been awful and boring, I'm positive. So we're back tonight and we're talking with not one, but two people. Tonight we're talking to Sage, which we have talked to before. And this time it's his girlfriend Nikki is with. Hello, Nikki. I'm so glad you're here tonight. They actually have a very unique angle on paranormal stuff to do with spirits. And so, as some of you may remember, or those of you that haven't heard, Sage actually connects with Civil War era ghosts on a regular basis. And he actually has, I would say, a small troop hanging out with him all the time. So Sage is the type of medium that can talk to and hear people that have passed on. And for some reason, this Civil War stuff is very near and dear to his heart, and they all came with it. So I'm going to let Sage go from here. He's going to catch us up a little bit from the last time we talked. He's got some really cool relics, and he's had some amazing discoveries. So welcome back, Sage, and welcome, Nikki. I'm so glad you guys are here, and I can't wait for you to share what's going on.
Absolutely. So for you guys that don't remember, my name is Sage Gatto. I'm a psychic medium and paranormal investigator from Pittsburgh, PA. Started doing this stuff just around the pandemic and started growing from there. My love for history has always been there since I was a child, and I've always felt close tied to the Civil War, especially getting to visit Gettysburg at a young age. That just kind of lighted the fuse, and it's grown to now gone to over a dozen battlefields now. I'm starting to get Nikki involved with it. We've been to a handful ourselves together, and we just kind of do what we can and travel and investigate what we can. I collect Civil War relics and just recently stumbled upon a whole bunch of Revolutionary War relics. I like to collect the bullets because they not only carry energy, but they carry a story too. And to me, you can't get more close to history than holding a piece of it and telling the story that's connected with it.
Right. Yeah, it's awesome.
Absolutely.
Kinetic reading is all I used to do.
Yep.
Many years ago, I would literally hold someone's keychain or a pen, earrings, rings. One of the weirdest ones I did was a sock.
Wow. Wow.
You'd be
Don't
surprised.
ask it, but it was interesting. Human hair, clothing, anything connected. And I know that there's several psychics that's what they excel at, is getting the vibration off of things. So I'm super familiar with getting data from that. And for me, I found it to be an incredibly reliable source. Energy never dies.
Yep.
So there is absolutely complete evidence for me that whatever you get is live and in technicolor, because it's not going to leave the object. It's there forever.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So last year, 2025, you went on a couple of trips that were really interesting. Where did you go first?
So our travel started last March. We were down in Virginia. We were doing a ghost hunt at a haunted bed and breakfast that was present in a town that had a lot of Civil War history. And we went, our good friends, actually, she's wearing the shirt for Haunted Nights.
Nice.
I'm good friends with the group, and they were hosting an event. They haven't been there in a couple of years. And of course, I got my arm twisted pretty hard to, go on a ghost hunt. Imagine that. And her and I were able to get 2-night tickets, so we went down and did the 2 nights there. And I was there a couple years ago. It was probably 2021, I think it was. I was there last, and I was really excited to get her down there. And of course, down there we did a little Civil War trail, and I took her to all my favorite battlefields in and around the area, since there's so many of them.
I bet that was fun.
It was a lot of fun, because it was cold, but it wasn't cold, if that makes any sense. It was a nice 50-degree weather, so when the wind would blow through, you'd get a little chill, but when it was sunny, it was nice.
I bet. So a haunted bed and breakfast. So
Yeah,
did they?
yeah,
I'm
the
curious.
building was
Did they
there.
advertise it? Did they advertise that they're haunted, or was this kind of don't tell anyone else here that you're here doing that? What was it?
I don't know what they say on their website.
I've never like been on like their Facebook page or website before, but like Haunted Nights has been doing events there for a long time, and Brandon's told me that it's been known as one of the most haunted locations in Virginia. And it's like an old like house, like you would assume to be like a mansion, and they rent out the bedrooms, for like a B&B. And they have ghost hunts there. The owners do mediumship stuff and readings, so I'd assume that it's advertised as such and people know it. But yeah, it was an interesting night. The time I was there in 2021 was actually with the guys at the TV show with Chris and Mike. They were there at the event, and we were sitting in the dining room area, just kind of minding our own business. And that group had literally just started, so we just started investigating. And we heard what sounded like a loud bowling ball or something fall upstairs. Like you could hear the initial thud and then it rolling across the floorboards, the clicking noise it makes. Right. And we all looked at each other like, what is that? What are they doing upstairs? Like, what did they just drop? And we just kind of like let it go and, did our thing. And then when the rotation happened, they came downstairs and Brandon was like, dude, what did you drop upstairs? Like, what are you guys doing? And they all looked at each other like, what are you talking about? They're like, you didn't drop a heavy bowling ball or something? And they're like, no, what are you talking about? And then we all looked at each other and goes, then how the hell did we hear something roll across the floorboards and they didn't drop anything?
Right.
It was the most bizarre thing in the whole world.
So did you guys get to record that? Was that recorded?
No, because we were literally just setting up and just about to start investigating. Right. So you're we're like, what in the hell? It was really cool, though. It was a really unique experience.
So what else did you guys discover while you were there this last time?
You brought the fragment, the cannibal fragment?
Yeah, I brought, so during that trip, I imagine me buying new bullets, who would have guessed? We were in Fredericksburg that day of I think it was Saturday. Mm-hmm. We went to Fredericksburg for a little while, and there's a little trailer that sells relics right across the road from the battlefield. I walked in and bought a handful, and I brought them with me. And Brandon's always been interested in how I connect with the bullets and how I, discover where they're from. And I asked him, I said, do you want me to lead a group and show you how I do this? And he's like, go for it. The floor is yours. Mm-hmm. So her and I sat down, and I had Brandon hold the bullet up just so the energy was present to the room. And he asked us if we want to use the Ouija board to see if they'll spell out the name of the battlefield or whatever. And I was always curious on that because, for me, I feel like I'm a walking Ouija board. So, being able to actually use it, I feel like the energies combined would give me a more clearer picture.
Right.
So, her and I sat down, and I closed my eyes. I think you kept your eyes open, I think.
Yeah.
And I just simply asked, I said, whoever's connected to this bullet that Brandon's holding, show us or tell us where you're from. And sure enough, we immediately started feeling the planchette start moving around, and it immediately went to F, and then it slowly started making its way to R, and then it started making its way over to E. And I was like, well, I already know where this is. I don't need the rest of it spelled out. But at that point, we started seeing flashes of light. Well, at least I did, because I had my eyes closed, and I'm trying to think to myself, why am I seeing just random blotches of light just popping up? And then I said, are you trying to show us something, while I was spelling out, the word? Right. And I remember she jumped back and screamed. I was like, what's wrong? I can't take my hands off. My eyes are closed. What's happening? And she just went, I literally just saw the battlefield. I had a very clear picture of dead bodies everywhere. And I just saw the battle. And then as she said that, the lights of the flashing light kind of made its way into a whole picture, and I started seeing the whole scene from the Sunken Road.
And then we had REM pod and the trail
trip
of
wire,
lights, the tripwire on the table. And next thing you know, when we said that, everything just started going.
Yeah.
Berserk.
So can you explain for people that are listening and watching, what battle are you referring to and what was going on at the time, so they can connect with this?
So the battle that the soldier was showing us was the Battle of Fredericksburg that took place in December of 1862. It was a 3-day battle. The Union Army crossed the Rappahannock River, took the town, and was stationed there, while the Confederates took up a position on the heights just outside of town. And their main defensive line was on an old farm road, hence the name they called the Sunken Road. And it had a stone wall run all the way down the length of it, and that's where the soldiers hid behind and used as defensive fortifications. And come the main assault, the Union Army had to march an entire mile straight uphill into a fortified position. And even though the Confederates were outnumbered 3-1, they put a heavy slaughtering down on the Union Army. And I've been fortunate enough to acquire a couple relics from that battle.
That's incredible. It's astounding to me that this is part of our history in the last 250 years.
Yes.
And there's so little that we know about it still. We don't have a lot of the details. So I love it when you can connect the dots. And can you share a little bit about, you get a relic and then what do you do with the relic? So you were on scene when you did these.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, okay, man, I can grab the one that we were using.
Yeah.
I remember which bag is this. I have everything right here beside me. Here we go.
Was it that one?
Yeah, it was this
yeah.
one. Because I keep everything like kind of separated, so I know like where I bought it from, and they'll help me remember where it's from until I can get shadow boxes.
Right.
But the bullet itself, it's kind of funny. So even though it could have been a northern bullet, could have been a southern bullet, doesn't mean that that's who was connected to it. Sometimes I have Confederates connected with northern bullets. Sometimes it's vice versa. Just they latch their energy to it, and that was their gateway to get out. And this was actually the bullet that we were using. It's a fired 3-ring Union mini ball, and this bullet was actually found in the stone wall that the Confederates were encamped behind. And the only reason we figured that out is this is the base of the bullet, which would have went down the barrel.
Okay.
And if you hold it, I'll just use this one for reference. This is a bullet from Miller's Cornfield in Antietam.
Awesome.
But it's the same caliber bullet, so you would think it would have been fired like this for the base to have been. Oh, this is really hard to do. Sorry.
That's okay. You're doing great.
For the bases to line up.
Right.
It had been fired at an upward trajectory, which
Sure.
matched the Union advance on the Sunken Road at Fredericksburg. And
That's
then I
awesome.
caught wind from the owner that this was found 50 feet from their store in the stone wall when they were renovating it to build it up to be what it is today, is the reconstructed stone wall.
Wow.
And I was like, who'd have thought?
Right.
But it was just insane. Just that bullet, we were able to see the scene from that defensive position. And I could have only imagined the carnage that not only that they would have seen it in front of them, but had to endure knowing that they were heavily outnumbered, wondering, are we getting swept or what's going to happen here?
Right.
So I can only imagine the fear that went on that day.
So then what happened?
She was kind of panicking. This was at the beginning of her really starting to get in tune with her abilities and herself. So I'm having her trying to walk me through what she's seeing, because I'm keeping my eyes closed just in case they're showing me something else, and I didn't want to move my hand off the board. And once it was just me, they had a really hard time moving the planchette, so I asked their permission if I can remove my hands, and we closed that off. But I kept my eyes closed just to kind of see if I'm pulling anything else that could be happening, around us. And I remember she saw the what did you end up seeing? I don't remember. I remember you saying that you saw the wall and the dead bodies in front of you, but
I thought I seen a soldier. I don't know. That was too far.
Yeah,
away,
that was.
I just remember whenever he was still under and he was using the Ouija board and his eyes were closed, I remember hearing something we were in the dining room per se, and to our left and behind him was the kitchen, and there was nobody in the kitchen at the time.
Right.
But I just heard a loud bang from the kitchen, and I was like, what was that?
I remember that once we all heard that, and someone got up and walked in, and something was thrown off the counter.
Yeah.
And she thought that she saw one of the soldiers in the kitchen area. I was like, oh God, what are we stirring up?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Because the town that the bed and breakfast is in was a major hub for the Confederate Army during the entire war. They always had troops coming in and out of town. So it wouldn't have been a surprise to have a high number of troop activity in that area. But
Sure.
The fact that we were talking with somebody that, connected to the bullet, and then that started happening, it's kind of hard to not want to think that that's all connected.
Well,
It could
sure.
have been coincidence. It could have been something else, but it's just a matter of how that came to be. It was kind of hard not to think that.
Right. So how long did you guys spend there?
We ended up spending 2 days there, and it was kind of crazy because both days was completely different. It was completely different both nights. It was really strange. So the first night was a
spent,
more
8 to 12 there.
Yeah, it's probably about 8 hours in total. I think
Yeah.
the events were about 4 hours each night. The first night was more intimate. It was less people, and it was we had a they brought a dinner for us, which was fantastic, and
Nice.
we all had a meeting in the round table for say, like everyone got to share paranormal experiences they've had, talk about the building, things that we've had happen at the building if people have been there before, kind of just take it easy, get to know each other, with all the guests, and then we broke out and did ghost hunting for the rest of the night. And that night was kind of more personal, more intimate. They the lady that owns the place did a kind of like a seance, but she used candles. I don't know if you're familiar with that technique of using candles and the fluttering of the light. And was it your grandma who came through? Remember?
Yeah, my great grandmother. She came over from Hungary,
Nice.
and my family's actually in the Heinz History Center in Pittsburgh, and my great grandfather, he came over from Croatia and Hungary, and he worked at the Carnegie Steel Mills, and he got severed in half by a train. Whoa. Because he decided to go into work one night at 12 midnight, and next thing you know, they get a call. My great-grandmother gets a call saying that your husband was just killed by a train. And I was like,
that's
wow.
Incredible.
Yeah, so,
Do you have any idea what year that was?
1909, I believe.
Yeah, I can send you the link to their story on the Heinz History website. It's all online and available. It's pretty neat.
I'd like to see that. That's interesting. Yeah. So that was a pretty active couple of nights, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I felt bad because everybody else was in there because they're saying all she said was, if there's anybody that's connected to anybody in this room, can you come forward? And everyone's everyone's like, oh, I want to talk to my grandma. I want to talk to my mom. I want to talk to blah, blah, whatever. Yeah. And we just sat there quiet because I was like, I've done this stuff before. So I don't want to take away from somebody else's experience. And then all of a sudden she just I forget how it started, but she was like, is anyone's grandparents here or, deceased grandparent, immigrant? And Nikki kind of turned around and looked at me and I was like, oh boy, where's this going?
And they said, is it what,
Mary? Yeah, she straight up said the name is
Mary?
is the person's name Mary?
And I was like,
and she just started crying. Yeah, she just started crying because she knew instantly. And the lady was spot on with everything that that she was saying, and she didn't know us from Adam. So we were just like, now how did you know that? That's incredible. Yeah,
that's fun when that happens.
Yeah,
that is really
it really is. I mean, I don't like doing whenever I give people readings just because I kind of feel like they're dumbfounded and don't know how to process it, and I don't quite really know how to explain it to them without just saying I just know.
Right.
So, but yeah, it was really, really interesting.
It sounds like it. So then after the bed and breakfast, what was the next trip that you guys had?
Well, we went we did the whole battlefields in Virginia there. We left there. Then we went to Antietam, and that was her first time being at the Antietam battlefield. We spent a day there on our way back from Virginia. Cold, very cold day. It was very windy. It was very cold, but they just reopened the visitor center and did a whole update there. So I wanted to check it out. And that was her first time there. So I like going there, especially because I have a strong connection. That's where I met Jamie. I remember my one close soldier. I met him there when I was 12. So that Antietam's always had a very strong hold on, to me. Right. And it was real neat to get there and see everything. It was kind of strange being there so early in the year, there being no trees and no vegetation. Right. It was real open. It was quiet. It was windy. It was cold. It was just different. I've never experienced a battlefield that early in the year before like that.
Gotcha.
But it was really, really interesting. I think that was your first real experience on a big battlefield that was actually has a ton of monuments.
I mean, it didn't feel heavy of any sort. It just seemed like the soldiers were at peace. Like it was peaceful.
And it's hilarious because I always get pulled to certain areas and just know where certain things are. And we were walking around the cornfield, which I have 2 relics here from the cornfield, and they have guides that like are volunteers who are going around the battlefield, and they're just standing there. And I'm just like walking back and forth because one of my soldiers was killed in the battle, commanding a Louisiana regiment. And I just stopped and I said, and because he was asking me if I had a question, I said, yeah, I do have a question. I said, where was Hayes' brigade, the Fighting Tigers? I was like, where were they at? And he like looked at me and went, right over there. No one's ever asked me that before. And I was like, you're welcome. He's like, how old are you? And I'm like, I'm 27. And he was like, oh my God, no one's asked me that before. I was like, yeah, I'm a nerd. I'm sorry. He's like, may I ask why you want to know that? I said,
you're like, oh boy, you're not ready for my answer.
Yeah, I had to make a story up because like, if you bring up like, oh, I'm a paranormal investigator, most of the guys look at you like, get off my battlefield. Like,
right.
You know, so I was just like, oh, I've been doing research on the 6th Louisiana, and I wanted to know exactly where, you know, the commander fell. And he was like, oh, yeah, if you turn around and look at that rock, it was right about that area where he was shot, and about 10 yards in front of him was his horse. I was like, so there's the spot. Cool. And I was just like, what are some stupid luck that I just happened to be right there?
Right.
You know? But
that's awesome.
It's really neat when stuff like that happens.
So what state is Antietam in?
Maryland.
Maryland. Okay.
Yeah, it's not even an hour south of Gettysburg, believe it or not. It's real close.
Okay. So will you describe what it's like for you when you go to the battlefields and how you get approached?
Yeah.
For people to understand what that's like?
Yeah, for most battlefields, it's the same, but there's some that are different. It all depends on, I guess, the I don't call it the severity, but the intensity that happened during that battle. When I'm at Antietam, it's almost like they just see me as a friend. So like just walking around, it's like they just like kind of nod and they just mind their own business. I mind my mind. I can't talk today. I can mind my own business, and they respect that. Sometimes, you know, if there's one that like will come out of the woodwork and will be like, can you help me? Or, you know, I need to talk to you. And that's when I just kind of open up to them and say, well, what do you need help with? And sometimes it's just a matter of the fact that I can hear them is enough for them. And then they either move on or, you know, they do their thing. Or sometimes it could be a soldier that fought at that battle but died years later.
Right.
And they could have been connected through a soldier that's with me now. And they could have talked and said, hey, like, he can hear you. If you need help, come to us and we'll help you. And sooner or later, I'll like just look off to my right or whatever, and I can feel a presence of multiple soldiers. And I know it's Jamie and whoever he's bringing to me to talk.
Right.
And they either talk to me there or, you know, we'll do our session at home and we'll talk to him here at home and kind of get that straightened out. Sometimes it's quite literally, they'll just come up to me right away and go, oh, hey, how are you? And I'm like, oh, shoot, this is how today's going.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not fully used to that because it's like 1 out of 5 times that I go that happens. But it's like still like star strikes me whenever like I just see a soldier just like walk up to me and like, oh, you can see me.
Well, and for me, usually like when I go to cemeteries or places that are very, very haunted, like when I went to last year, we went to a military base that's kind of half closed and half open near us, and a lot of activity that I observed at the time was them just doing regular stuff. There were spirits in all different conditions and all different eras in different military uniforms, and some of them looked like they were just doing work, like they were reenacting their daily lives on the base. And other ones clearly had been in some kind of explosion. Their clothes were burnt, and they had, you know, images and signs of trauma of some kind. But for me, it's usually really interesting when they see me looking back at them, and then they're like, she can see me. And it takes that ripple effect before they finally start walking up going, can you hear me too? Can you hear what I'm saying? Do you see me? I know you see me. You're looking at me. And it's like, yes, I can see you. Yes, I can hear you. Oh, okay. And then it all goes bananas after that.
Yep.
But I love that you can go to these familiar places and they recognize you. I love it when that happens, because then they're like, "Oh yeah, she can hear us. We can talk to her."
Yep.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it when that
And it's
happens.
funny because there's times like I usually wear my Irish, gear from head to toe, and I'm usually in my kepi with boxwood in it, like they wore, at Fredericksburg. And I
Right.
remember I was walking around the Chancellorsville battlefield some years ago with a friend of mine, and out of nowhere she just starts laughing, and I was like, "What's so funny?" And they're like, "Oh, they just referred to you as the Irish boy," and I was like, "Imagine that!
Yeah.
If you would have ever guessed."
That's awesome.
Like, is this how we're gonna refer to me now? And then
Right.
right after that, I literally heard a voice go behind
Yeah.
us, and I was like, "Okay, guys, enough." Like,
Right.
get it.
Well, never let it be said that ghosts don't have a sense of humor, because they really do.
Oh, they do.
They
Jamie's
really do.
rotten. If there's any ghost I've ever met that's been like a nuisance but also is hilarious, it's Jamie.
Oh yeah. He's always a prankster.
We could be fine, like trying to find something in our apartment, and we could just have misplaced it ourselves, but we know for a fact, like, we put it somewhere, and then we go and look for it, and it's not there.
Yep.
And then, like, maybe an hour later, it's there again, and I'm like, where was that?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, well, was it just the other day you were looking for something?
Yeah.
And I told her it was on the table, and she was like, "No, it's not. Like, I'm looking all over the table. It's not there." And then the next day, she like gets home from work, and it's on the table. I was like, "I told you." And she's like, "No, I swear to you, it wasn't there." I was like, "Jamie, I'm gonna kick your ass."
Yeah.
Even our I'll just show real quick. This artillery shell fragment I picked up. This was also dug up in the Miller's cornfield in Antietam, and I had this just sitting on our dining room table, and it's pretty heavy. Like, I'd say this is probably about 5 pounds, so it's got some weight to it. This little piece.
We were just sitting here.
Yeah,
and it
I was sitting in my chair.
It was probably around dinner time.
Yeah.
And our dining room table's against the wall because our apartment's not that big.
Mhm.
And like, I don't know. I guess it was like leaning on the wall of some sort. Like, it was like a small little space that it could have fell.
But mind you, it's been there for several days.
Yes.
And it hasn't moved an inch.
It hasn't
Right.
moved an inch. And then next thing you know, it drops.
Yeah, it literally flung off the table and landed at her feet because she was sitting here on the couch, and I was just adjacent to her in my chair. And I was like, "What in the hell was that noise?" And she goes, "Oh, that was just one of your cannonballs." I was like,
"Yeah," I was like, "That was your cannonball fragment." Yeah. And I was like, "What?"
And I grabbed my spirit box, and I was like, "We're gonna get to the bottom of this. Let's see if they'll talk to us and tell us, who did that."
Right.
So we turn it on, and like nothing's really coming through, and she goes, "Come on, don't be afraid. Like, tell us, who was that?" And then a very familiar voice comes through going, "It was me." And then she just goes, "Jamie, was that you?" And then all you hear is, "Shit." And I was like, "You are so rotten."
That's cute. So what else happened at Antietam after that?
Nothing really a whole lot. That trip was real quiet. I mean, it
was like, what, 4 hours, 5 hours that we spent there?
We spent a good amount of time there, just driving around and just kind of took in the battlefield. It's a different battlefield. There's days that you can go there in the summer and the energy's real high charged and like you just kind of feel it. But that time of year, we were just like kind of just like there, and it was like a real somber, like quiet, relaxing feeling. It wasn't real intense or anything. It was actually a really good experience for her first time because it's a lot like Gettysburg. There's probably close to 1,000 monuments on the battlefield, and there's a lot to see, a lot to take in, a lot to understand, and try to encapsulate in your mind what happened there and how the troop movements were when you're looking at all the monuments everywhere. I got to do a lot of photography. I took a piece that I bought when I was a child that came from the battlefield back to the spot where it was originally dug up and took pictures with it there. That was kind of cool. Other than that, it was just kind of a real history oriented trip. It was just quiet.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you were just gathering basic data on that one.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
That's awesome. But that sounds like it was a good exposure for you, Nikki, to go and do that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, after that, I felt like I could really touch into my like empathic side. know like if a spirit's talking to me or anything. I can feel a presence in a room very easily now. Just the other night, I seen one of his soldiers right by the bed, and I was like, "Oh well, I just seen a soldier like about 5'8", 5'9". I said, I don't know who it was, but they just seemed like they were surveying like our bed to make sure that we were safe." So.
And she described what he was wearing, what he looked like, and I was just like real casual, like, "Oh yeah, that was probably Francis." And she's like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "What?" So he's not gonna.
That's the thing. They go everywhere. You
Yeah.
can set boundaries and tell them to stay out of your bedroom because they don't have to be there. They just get bored.
Yeah, they
and
know.
They wander around.
They're the ones that are allowed in our bedroom know, like, they're allowed, because more times than not, we'll see the shadows moving out here. And when we're out here, Jamie's usually in the bedroom. So, like, from time to time, like, I'll look up and see a shadow, like, move across the wall in the bedroom. It's like, oh, it's just Jamie, whatever. And when we're in there, he's usually in there until we get, situated and comfortable. Then we'll see them out here, a handful of them at a time, just kind of just chilling. But, like, they know, like, if they need something, they're allowed in the bedroom. But more times than not, they're out here.
Yeah.
They know their boundaries. And the rest of the army either stays out in the field, to the outside the apartment, or they just kind of find camp, anywhere that they're familiar with, that they feel safe at, and just come and go as they please.
Well, and it gets crowded. Ghosts need space too.
Yep, it's an open door, and they know that, and they come and go as they please. So
that's awesome. So after that trip, where did you guys go after that?
That's I'm looking back to see. It was a busy year.
I was going to say, you guys have had that's the thing I should probably share. So Sage and I keep in touch and talk throughout the year because stuff happens and we just kind of share things. And when I find stuff that has to do with the Civil War, I always send it to him. Or I actually have in my seance a couple of times talked with some spirits from your era, and it's fascinating. I mean, I love talking to all spirits to begin with, but I don't get guys in uniform very often, Most of the time I get people that are they just present the way they were when they passed on, or their favorite age. So then I get a story from whatever era they're from. So I always talk to you when they're your era.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm just going back through my pictures to see like what we did last year. We did do one ghost hunt at the end of August that took her to Fairfield County Infirmary in Ohio. I think we talked about that the last time I was on here. So that's the one where I had the Army show up.
That's right.
The drums and the fight.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. That was a really crazy night because I wasn't expecting to have to do that, and I don't think anybody was, to be honest with you. But it was just a matter of the fact that I just called on the protective bunch, and then the protective bunch turned into 300 soldiers showing up. So
yeah, that's awesome.
That was pretty. I remember we did that, and then I did a cemetery at some point with my one friend, which was kind of interesting because that's when Ulysses S. Grant showed up out of the blue.
Why don't you talk about that? Tell us what happened.
Yeah, that was a real strange night. So it's an old cemetery in the middle of the woods. It's middle of nowhere. It's wide open. It's creepy. It is what it is. We were just sitting there, and we like walked around. We're seeing the headstones, just looking at things, just trying to connect with spirits. And my friend was talking about how the last time she was there was this darker entity that more or less chased them out of the cemetery the last time. And it was not like a good spirit. I'm thinking, great, what are we getting ourselves into? And when we got there, she like showed me the perimeter, and all the trees are painted with white crosses. And I'm just like, what is happening here? And she goes, well, this is to keep the spirits in and what's not here out. And I was like, that's a very creepy way of explaining it. Like, thanks.
That's different.
Yeah, so we're like walking around, and like the entire time you can hear things rustling around and moving around in the tree line, like deep in the woods, but like it didn't seem like it can get any closer than that. So I was kind of thinking to myself, like, maybe she was right. Like maybe these things are staying back, because of the protection or whatever. And we sat down and started doing a spirit box session just to see if there's anyone around wanting to talk. And every so periodically through it, you would hear like like a musket shot. We'd hear like a gunshot come through. And I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, that's really weird. I was like, what's happening here? And then eventually we just said, you know what? We're just going to sit here. We'll press start on a voice recorder, let it record. What happens, happens. That's that. And we let it run for like 5 minutes, and then we cut it. And we started listening back, and it quite literally sounded like we were sitting in the middle of a battle. You could hear cannon shots. You can hear soldiers screaming. You can hear rapid, like, lines of gunshots going off. And she looked at me. She goes, "Are your guys doing their thing again?" I was like, I mean, clearly they are for hearing cannon shots and gunshots.
Right.
And she was like, "Why do you think that is?" I said, "I guarantee you they're having a battle with the spirits right now. Like they probably felt challenged, and this is what they're trained to do. This is their way of pushing back what's, more or less in their terms, attacking us."
Right.
And she was like, "Oh, I didn't think about that." I was like, "Yeah, they probably felt challenged. So now they're setting up a defensive line and keeping us safe." And I was like, now I think about it, that's kind of cool.
It is.
And, literally as we were talking like about it and trying to think our way through it, I could hear like a horse galloping. Like you can hear like the noise, like a horse like making its like, just like breathing and like it's neighing and whatnot. And next thing you know, my one or her ex now was with us, and he was like looking around. We could hear like a horse just like kind of just trotting around us. Like it was like just going in a circle around us.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Do you have any like officers?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." I was like, "It would make sense for a couple of them to be horseback."
Sure.
And he was like, "No, this is something different. This isn't like a normal like just soldier." And I was like, "Who are we talking about here then?" And he was like, "I don't know, but he looks important." And I was like, interesting. So we like kind of let it go for a little while, and we were just like all just sitting in a circle, and all of a sudden like it was like, because there was only 4 of us, so it was like more like a U that we were sitting in the shape of, and we just felt like another presence just kind of just join us. And all of a sudden he like turns and looks at me and goes, "This guy almost looks like Robert E. Lee. Do you know who I'm talking about?" And I was like, "If it's not Robert E. Lee, I think I know who you're talking about." And he started describing the beard and like the hair and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at him, I said, "If I show you a picture, would you confirm?" And he was like, "Yeah." So I pulled up a picture of Grant in his later years after his presidency. And he got like pale white and was like, "Dude, that's who I'm looking at."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "You're telling me President Grant and former General Ulysses S. Grant is sitting here with us?" And he was like, "Yeah, he's right there."
Wow.
And I was
That's
like,
amazing.
"Why?" I was like, I got so many questions right now. It was
That must have been incredible.
Really cool.
So then what happened?
Then we just kind of like started to figure out, like, one, why are you here? And second of all, is there a reason why you're here? And he literally just said, "Oh, I just wanted to say hi." And we're just like, "Hi?" That's kind of cool, I guess.
Yeah.
And he was like, and then I remember that he like asked like, "Oh, are your soldiers okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, they got it taken care of, it seems. So, we're pretty safe. We're okay here." And he was like, "Oh, okay." And he just nodded and said, "This is pretty cool, actually," and just disappeared. And we're like, what is happening right now? Like, this isn't real. Just like, how did that just happen? Like,
it's incredible.
I had so many questions because, like, if I tell people, they're going to think I'm crazy. I think I'm crazy. I feel like I'm crazy. But I just witnessed that. I knew it happened.
I think it's great that you can just let it roll when it's happening, because that's the best thing to do.
Yep.
Just let it roll.
Because sometimes it's hard. It's really hard. Because sometimes I forget what I'm doing. And if I'm investigating and I have a spirit box in my hand and one of them like looks at me confused, like, "What is that in your hand?" I had to like think of a way to explain it to them in their terms. So I'm like, I don't know how to explain it to you.
Right.
Because like I remember the night we met Stonewall Jackson at Fredericksburg, whenever we were investigating the Sunken Road at night, he like looked at us real confused with like what this box was in our hand. I'm like, and my friend like was real quick. It was like, "Oh, this is a talking device. Like, this is something that like, connects us, and you're able to like record your voice through it." And he was like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "How do you think of that?" Like, I would never know how to explain that to them.
Well, because there was some technology then that
Yeah.
would, telephones. There was,
Yeah, because
telegraph.
yeah.
There's a little bit of technology that they can kind of trail their thoughts to kind of connect the two. But
Yeah.
no, that's fair, because when you're dealing with someone from a completely different era, this era terrifies them.
Yeah.
I've had ghosts walk away from me because my phone freaks them out. So sometimes I just leave my phone in my pocket, until I get to know who I'm around. And then if they're, younger ghosts tend to be more inquisitive and more curious and braver. And sometimes the older ghosts, it's just too different. So they don't comprehend it and it scares them. And I can just imagine, if living back in that era, if somebody flew a plane in front of you and landed, you would think it's an alien,
Yeah, exactly.
And people walked out of it, you'd be like, it's a monster that swallowed humans. What is that? It's hard to relate things like that. So that's kind of fun when you get to talk to people from different eras.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling.
I still laugh about one of our first interviews, and you saw one of my generals standing behind me all confused the entire night.
Yeah.
It was like he didn't know how we were talking through a screen.
Yeah. Well,
that was interesting.
it doesn't make sense, Yeah. It's very spooky for them as well, which I think people don't think about. They're so busy being scared themselves or startled or surprised, they don't think about what the heck is going on in the ghost mind.
Yep, exactly.
Because they have a totally different experience. Okay. So you got to have a decent conversation, which was awesome.
Yeah.
But moving forward, are you planning on going back to that area to try and reconnect so you can ask some of your questions? Have you thought about doing that?
Yeah, we were trying to plan a night back there, just our schedules have been so incredibly busy this year.
Right.
I haven't really been able to have much free time, because when I'm on my weekends, I just want to relax and be dead to the world, because work's been incredibly busy. And she works one weekend a month, so sometimes it just doesn't line up the way we want it to.
Right. That's true. It's hard to do all that stuff that you want to do sometimes. Yes. I get it.
Yes, that's why I'm glad I have the relics, because if I'm bored and want to brushing up or whatever, they always, not all of them have talked to me yet. I can hold something and know that there might be 3 soldiers that come with it, but only one of them will talk. And then a year down the line, all of a sudden one will be like, hey, I want to talk now. So I have a lot that I still need to learn, so that'll help keep me busy.
Right. No, but I think that's good. If you have a regular time to do that, it might help them to know, okay, well, I know that next Tuesday he's going to be willing to talk to me. So, and then they can kind of plan ahead. Yeah. I do find, and it's funny, but ghosts do like a schedule sometimes, because they don't track time like we do. They have no sense of time.
Yep.
So it's interesting for them too, but they do pay attention to stuff like that.
And they understand that I'm busy. I'll get home from work some days and be like, listen, I'm really sorry we haven't talked. I don't have time. I said, I promise, maybe tomorrow around this time, I'll sit down with you guys. And I'll get home, I'll grab my spirit box and turn it on, see who comes through, who wants to talk. Maybe I'll ask a couple questions of the dowsing rods. And if it's, if I'm getting answers, great. If not, then I just turn it off and we'll try another time.
Right. Right. So what is your goal? What are you most curious about these days? What are you working on?
Gettysburg's been just a constant tie to me. I don't know if it's just because it's close to us. It's, a major battle. I'm not too entirely sure. I'm obviously always doing research on the Civil War as a whole, and always learning about different battlefields or popping up on my Facebook page. But everything in a way kind of comes back to Gettysburg. It's now to a point where I understand the battle. I understand what happened. I understand who was involved. Now I'm breaking it down to a more personal level of understanding what the individual soldier did and where they did it. And that kind of opens up a wide range of things now, because we were just there in June, and being in that level now where I'm understanding the person, I'm understanding an individual. When we're standing in that area where their unit was, instead of thinking, oh wow, this is a lot of people in this area, I'm now thinking, oh wow, he literally walked right through here. And I'm almost following exact footsteps of one specific soldier instead of abroad. Right. And that it almost opened my eyes to a more unique experience, because you're thinking, how are they feeling? How are they in that moment, how, were they sick? Were they not? Were they, dehydrated? Like what were they feeling in that exact moment? And seeing that the battlefield is in very similar condition to what it was in 1863,
Right.
it kind of just makes me think like, wow, I literally am in their footsteps. And it's really neat. I really enjoy that.
I bet. There's a
It's
lot
kind of
to
hard
what
to,
you do. Yeah. It's
yeah,
hard to quantify it all and make sense of it all because there's a lot going on.
yeah. Especially in places like Gettysburg, where the battlefield is, I think they said there's over like 30 miles worth of battlefield if you stretch it all out
Wow.
from A to B and like get around to see everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to go down roads that I've never been down before, because I usually take the tour route and just take the big loop. But now,
Right.
instead of going, from spot to spot, I told her, I was like, let's turn down here, because I've never been down here before. And now all of a sudden I'm seeing a whole section of the line that I've never seen before, and seeing monuments that I've never seen before. And of course, me being a history buff and a nerd and knowing every speck of dirt in that town, I knew exactly where I was, but it's just a matter of the fact that I've never been there before. I didn't know,
Right.
what it actually physically looked like with my own eyes, but I knew where I was. So that was really cool. And we're going back in
Labor Day weekend.
about a month. So we're going to do more exploring down areas that are lesser seen and off the tour route.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be awesome. Well, we're going to have to get together after you guys get back and talk
Yes.
about that.
Absolutely.
I love hearing about that stuff. And honestly, I feel like this year's probably a great time to do that because of the anniversary of
Yep.
our country starting.
Yep.
I've been watching a lot of documentaries on different characters from that time in our world, and it's fascinating. Their lives were so complicated,
Yep.
so different from ours today by far, but still very, very complicated lives. They had so much going on. So I'm never surprised when they have things that they're curious about or things they want to understand. But I'd love to hear all their stories because it's fascinating to me.
Absolutely.
It's very interesting to me how people dealt with things and what they used during the day. How did they get what they needed? How did they work out the problems they had? I mean, a lot of that's really rough. It's really difficult stuff.
Yeah, especially because I've learned recently that a lot of the casualties and dead that happened in the Civil War came from dysentery and illness.
Mm-hmm.
There was more deaths to that than there was actual combat wounds. And I was like, when you look at the grand scheme of things and the amount of people that died during the war and know that the majority of that number is illness, it's kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you happen to know what the total amount of casualties was? I know the Civil War was enormous with losses.
It was very close to 1 million.
Yeah, see, no other battle has come close to that.
800,000. Yeah.
Yeah. See, that beats all of the other wars around it.
Yeah. And you think like they estimate around 800,000 in the Civil War, and then you reckon that there was about 30,000 in Gettysburg alone.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So it's just kind of hard to put that in perspective, especially when you go to some of these areas and they're not very wide, big, open areas. It's more of a confined area for say. And knowing that they had over 1,000 casualties in just that spot alone, you're sitting there thinking, now how in the hell were there even that many people here to have 1,000 casualties and still have a sizable force still present? It's beyond,
That's crazy.
it's hard to, that's where I get my, thrill with the battlefield. It's just the numbers, the logistics, and, like going back to the personal thing, like when we're standing on Little Round Top today, it's just a open faced hillside that's really steep, has a handful of monuments, markers to where the cannon batteries were, and it has a commanding view of the field. But then you think back 160 years, and all of a sudden you're thinking, okay, so there was about 3,000 troops directly in front of me coming up this hillside. How's that possible?
Right.
And then you're looking down and realizing how little room there actually is. So it's just what they must have felt seeing that force approaching could only been, I'd assume just straight fear.
Oh, sure. It would have been daunting.
Yep.
That would have been
And
really
we actually
something.
had a very crazy connection to Gettysburg this year. I completely forgot about this. We were her and I went up to Lake Erie a couple weeks ago just for for the day with her mom. And one of the commanders of a brigade on Little Round Top, Strong Vincent, he's actually from Erie. And there's a monument to him, and he's actually buried in Erie. But the cemetery was closed before we can get in to actually see his burial site. But he was killed on July 2nd on Little Round Top. And it's crazy because I've seen his marker and his plaque on Little Round Top numerous times.
Right.
And his story is just incredible of how he was able to not only rally the troops, but be a major cause to why those troops stayed on that hillside. Wow. And he ended up being killed in action right there, and he's buried right, near where we went. It was just really cool. I didn't know that because we were looking for things to do. And it just popped up on the map and said Strong Vincent Memorial. And I looked at her, I was like, what? I was like, I didn't know he was from Erie. So I just started doing like some quick Googling, and I was like, holy crap, his whole family's buried here. This is where he's from.
Yeah.
I had no idea he was from Erie because he went to Harvard, and he was like one of the more intellectual back then. So, everyone knew him as like the Harvard boy. I never knew that he was from Erie.
You got to write a book about all this stuff. I hope you're making him take notes, Nikki.
I mean, hey, he knows everything about the Civil War and history, and I was like, well, you should be a historian. And he was like, the test is too hard.
Yeah, my mom and her want me to become a licensed battlefield guide in Gettysburg, but the hard part about that is you have to like basically know like what size socks like whatever commander was wearing, and like the most random stupid stuff in the world. Because like their whole point is first, like, say a little kid comes up to me and like asks some like really specific weird question that they might know from an ancestor that fought or whatever. We have to know the answer to that. So if they come and like say like, oh, what was the average shoe size of a soldier back then? I'd have to know that. I'll be like,
I don't
know. But like that, it's just like, they'll be like that. And some of that I've like looked to see like, they have like test questions that they'll put out, for like practice.
Right.
And there'll be one to be like, what was this specific colonel from Florida's middle name?
Oh dear.
Be like, oh yeah, let me just pull up my notes real quick. Like, like how do you people know this? And that's the kind of stuff they expect you to know. So I know that dream's long gone.
Well, I think though you could do your own version and offer tours that are of a paranormal nature. And I think people might really appreciate that. Because random things happen all the time. And I think it would be nice for other people that have had an experience here and there to just get to talk to you about what they saw. And maybe you can help them figure out what they're missing, the missing pieces of what they located.
Yes.
I mean, I had one, I think I told you about, and I don't think I've shared this on the podcast yet, but I don't remember how many months ago this was even. I had in my weekly seance, I had a Japanese looking military person show up, and he told me I needed to take these specific colored roses to this garden. And I ended up finding out right before I left, I was told to take 3. And I'd never been to this location before. And when we pulled up to where we were supposed to be, there was a placard that there were 3 Japanese soldiers that died right where I live in a battle that happened. And what the spirit was telling me is that they were not properly honored, that they were, returned home, but that there was a part of their memorial service that should have happened here that didn't. And so it just gave me goosebumps that the visitor center was closed, of course, when I got there, but I was just shocked. So I just said, can I leave the roses here at the sign? And they said, that's okay. But it was like 3 guys, 3 roses. And it's like, I don't know why they needed them on that day. And I took some notes for myself so I don't forget the rest of the details. But those things happen to mediums and psychics. And it's like, it would be great to have a way to share that or talk about that with other people at certain locations, especially. Because there's other people that are in the paranormal world going to where you go. And having experiences, and it would be fun to have a forum to talk about that.
Absolutely. And I know like Manassas, Virginia is a fantastic point to what you just said, because with that being the very first battle of the Civil War, the soldiers are real green. They, more or less just, civilian soldiers at this point,
Oh,
just
yeah.
standing up for the uprising from, whatever side, they fought for. And the Confederates were all buried in mass trenches where the Union got properly, buried. And to a lot of them, they feel forgotten because they're not buried properly. They're not buried with family. They're just shoved in a hole.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So for their memory and sake, regardless of, beliefs and politics and all that aside, like every time I go and I visit the Confederate cemetery, I always leave yellow roses for them, even if it's fake ones I can buy from a store.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps them kind of come to ease and understand that they are not forgotten. And it's just the simple,
Right.
very simple things like that. And, sometimes it's, even if I don't have the time to stop and get them flowers, like I always, I took my hat off the last time and said a little prayer for them. And just stood there with them, and that was enough for them to understand, like, hey, like, we appreciate you, not forgetting us.
Right.
Because back then, times were different, beliefs were different. I get it. But in my eyes, like, it's just like, that's just another soldier that needs remembered. So however I can do that, I do my best to do that.
That's awesome. What's interesting for me is that the Japanese gentleman that contacted me said to get peach colored roses.
Mm-hmm.
See, in the United States, yellow is a military remembrance, yellow ribbons on the tree when they come home, stuff like that. Yellow, yellow, yellow. And so when he said peach, I went, okay. My favorite rose is the peace rose, which is a shade variation of yellows and oranges.
Oh, wow.
And it's gorgeous. It's really beautiful. There's a Japanese garden that's in Portland, not far from me. And it's one of the few places that I've gotten to see them. I actually have been wanting to plant them in my yard because they look like a sunset.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen just the color variations, it's so pretty. And I love that it's the peace rose. It represents peace. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, I'll talk about the most recent trip to Gettysburg, because she actually got to experience something on the battlefield.
Okay.
There's a handful of witness trees still on the battlefield that were there during the Battle of Gettysburg and are still there today. And we were at the one on Devil's Den, the rock formation in the battlefield, just in front of Little Round Top. And I pointed out to her and I told her, I said, did you know that this tree was here during the battle? And she was like, no, I didn't. I said, yeah, this saw the battle. And she like just started getting like real dizzy and lightheaded and like.
Yeah, we were coming up to the Devil's Den, and they have like a walkway up to where the tree is, and I didn't even make it to the little part of the hill to walk up to it yet, and all of a sudden I was like at a standstill. I felt dizzy. I had a headache, and next thing you know, I'm crying out of nowhere, and I'm like, I just really need to cry.
Yep.
I don't know why, but I'm just very emotional right now. And he was like, it's okay.
That's very common, for people like us in areas that. And just to kind of have like my piece of like remembrance, I went up and I told her to touch the tree with me. And the second we touched the tree, like you can feel the energy. And then
it was really cold.
It got like 25, 30 degrees colder around us when we touched that tree. And I was like,
oh, I bet.
Because it was hotter than sin. Like it was, middle, end of July or June. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So it was pretty toasty. And the second we did that, it got real like a cold air just around us. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it's like it was cold in the shade, but like once we touched the tree, it was like maybe 10 or 20 degrees colder.
Yeah, it was significant. Yeah. Like you felt the drop instantly.
Right. That's awesome.
And then we actually got to stay with my older brother at a campground in their RV. And we were making burgers and hanging out, and it was pretty dark at this point. And
it's probably around like 9:30.
9:30, yeah. And they behind them was like the middle of the campground, and where we were staying was just off battlefield property behind Big Ground Top. And in the area where the campground is where about 17,000 Vermont soldiers were held in reserve. And we were just sitting there, and I was explaining to them like the significance of this area, because my brother-in-law is real interested in that stuff, especially knowing that I know a lot of stuff about that. And I was explaining to them about what would have been happening in this area during the battle, about how this was all just a giant encampment and whatnot. And then we were just kind of just talking and just having, just telling stories. And out of nowhere, I literally see a soldier form and just run right across the campsite and went behind one of the outhouse buildings or whatever that's right in the middle of the campground and just vanish. And I had to do like a double take and like think back what I just saw, because like you could see like he had his hand up like this, like he was carrying a rifle. And I just saw him in a full sprint just take off and then vanish.
Funny.
I was like, all right, Gettysburg, I see how we're gonna be tonight.
Yeah.
But that was really cool. Then we heard when we were actually on Little Round Top, my brother-in-law heard a cannon shot. And I'm used to it. I hear it every battlefield I go to. You'll hear something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just walking. All of a sudden, he stopped and went, wait, listen. Did you hear that? And I was like, what did you hear? He goes, listen. And then all of a sudden, he's here, boom. And I was like, oh, yeah, there it is. He was like, it's a cannon.
It was crazy.
And he's like, why are we hearing cannons? I was like, Matt, where are we? And he's like, yeah.
Oh.
I was like, yeah. But it's hard for someone that doesn't understand it or haven't been before to fully comprehend the split realm that you could be hearing residual energy of the battle,
right?
And it be sounding like it's miles away, but it's really just residual of what happened right there.
Right.
So considering where we were standing, that blast could have been from the other end of the battlefield for all we know.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Exactly. You don't know, but that's interesting though, that I'm glad, Nikki, that you're getting to sense things, because the more you do that, the better you get and the more interesting. And after this program, I'm going to send you a link for a book that if you're interested, I would love for you to take a look at. It'd be good for both of you guys, but I think you would find it really interesting. Not very big, but it has to do with what you're dealing with. I'm excited to see what else you guys are going to wind up experiencing this year. And I hope that you're writing everything down, because time tends to leak away details. So it's important to track everything, even if it's just an audible recording, anything. And then just to keep journaling it, because it's important.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All this stuff matters. It really, really does. That's awesome.
There's a bullet I've been kind of saving to take out, because it's been like kind of creeping me out. I bought a whole bunch of relics when we were in Gettysburg, because the store that I usually shop from, they have stuff that's unique to Gettysburg. It comes with a certificate of authenticity. It all came from the battle, and that's stuff I like to buy for obvious reasons, because it's rare and hard to get Gettysburg related stuff. But a lot of stores will sell stuff to other battlefields as well. And we were in one store, and they had a bunch of relics that came from the Chancellorsville battlefield. And I was like, ooh, it's rare, too, to find, things that you can say, like, hey, this came from this battlefield.
Right.
So I was automatically interested in them. And as of late, I've been more into buying the shot bullets and the drop, like those kind of bullets, because I have a ton of dropped ones. So it's like I might as well have ones that were actually fired, too.
Sure.
And the one I bought was a Union 3-ring mini ball. I can't even hold my fingers right again, tingly, just pulling it out of the bag. This is what it looks like, or what's left of it. Just the base, and then the top is real mushroomed out and flattened. And I was talking about this on a podcast about a month ago, and I had a hard time even just holding it because of the energy that's attached to it. And I was just trying to explain like what happened, to why that bullet is like that. And the room got ice cold. Like I was like sweating because, just like moving around and talking. And then all of a sudden, like it got so cold to the point where like I almost started seeing my breath. And I was like, okay, what is going on with this bullet? Because it just, I don't know. But, and then I bought a Confederate bullet with it. It's a shot Enfield bullet. It would have been a Confederate 2-ringer.
Right.
But it was just, those both came from the Chancellorsville battlefield, and whenever I started figuring out the flat Union 3-ringer, I'm almost certain that was in somebody's shoulder, that was a wounding bullet.
Yeah, just the way that it crushed.
Yeah.
You can tell that it hit. Yeah.
Yeah, because like the way it's like flattened, it's just weird, like that we think it like hit like either right there or somewhere on the back of the shoulder up here or something.
Right.
I don't know. It just, whenever I held it the first time, whenever I bought it, my hand just instantly went numb. It was real tingly.
Right.
And I just felt the energy just travel up my arm, and then my shoulders started hurting, and I was just like, "Oh God, this was in somebody. This is a first for me."
Yeah. But that's usually what happens when you have kinetic readings. If there's something specific going on, the first one that I had that was really profound, a gentleman friend of mine was in Vietnam, and a gentleman that he was with in his platoon showed up, and I kept getting this horrible pain in my right arm. It started at my shoulder, and then I felt like my elbow was on fire. It burned so bad, and then my whole lower arm just went numb. And I said, this guy lost part of his arm, and he got hit more than once, but it was excruciating. And I felt, and I don't imagine, and I would never claim that I know exactly what he felt like, but I could feel some of his pain. And it was profound. And my friend at the time went, oh my God, it's blah, blah, blah. And he's blurted all this stuff. And he goes, yeah, he lost his arm at this one location on this one day. And I didn't know what happened to him because they lost track of each other after he went to the hospital.
Yeah.
Because a lot of things were done. They call it meatball surgery for a reason, and they basically get patched together and then they get to go home. And so he had lost touch with him and wanted to know what happened. And so it was really sweet, actually. The guy, was very amicable and very kind and shared a lot of stuff and told us what happened when he got home and how his family was and that he hadn't forgotten this gentleman. And it was a really neat conversation because it was like they finally got some closure.
Yeah.
They finally got some closure. It was cool.
Absolutely. And it's like, even like that too, for me, like if I don't like asking how were you killed? Because to me, that's just like a little bit too direct, but like, I'll get to it without asking directly. And I'll just like, if I'll ask them like, were you wounded in battle? And if they say yes, I'll be like, I'll just say, if you don't mind, can you show me or tell me how you were wounded? And then I'll know where like, I'll get like chest pain, or I'll get, like pain right here. Or I'll get pain up here. The areas that you expect to get hit from a bullet standing in line. And I'm, that just like, to me, it's like kind of neat just to know, because, it's just my curious mind, but also I don't want them to feel like I'm just talking to them just because I want to prove something. Like, it's like meeting somebody new for the first time, that's how I approach it as a conversation. And they show me like, oh, I was hit here. My next question is, oh, well, how can I help you? And they don't expect that, because I know them thinking that that's carrying trauma. That's probably potentially still carrying pain, even though they, more or less can't feel pain anymore. Right. And I just want them to realize that, like, that's normal. That's okay. I understand you're hit, but I want you to talk about, like, is there a way I can help you so you don't think about that? Right. And that kind of helps connect with them, but also at the same hand, like, I want to know then, like, what was it? Were you hit by a ball? Were you hit by a mini ball? Were you hit by an artillery round? Like, what, explain to me, like, what happened? And the more they start talking about it, the more they realize, oh, yeah, I guess I was hit pretty badly. I didn't realize that I had died. They to them, in their eyes, they think they're still there. Right. It's still vivid for them. Yeah. So, like, I kind of help them realize that it's okay to move on, that they don't have to be stuck in that position anymore. Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. It's not easy, but yep. No, it's not. There's a lot involved with what you're doing, but it is important and it's awesome. I love it. Absolutely. I think it's great what you're doing. And I love that you get to focus on an era, because I think that gives you more time to really get answers that nobody's gotten before. Yep. And details that could have easily been forgotten if somebody wasn't focusing on that specific thing at a time. So I look forward to that. I think that's great. Well, I just want to thank you guys for coming on tonight and doing this with me, because it's long overdue. Yes. And I just want to say thank you for taking the time to share some of the stories that you have, because I know you have a gob. Yes. But as my friend Jay likes to remind me, take a minute, please, for those of you watching and listening, hit the like button, a thumbs up. I know it may seem annoying that everybody asks this when you're listening to a podcast or watching a podcast.
It only takes a nanosecond. It doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps the station and the channel. So
Right.
please do that just for a second. And if you like the content, please share it for other people that are interested, and subscribe, because then you get a notification every time we get new stuff out, and it's fun. This is Holly from Holly's Pandorium. I just want to say thank you for joining us tonight, and I'll be back again soon with more fun stories.